Start with our recording and we'll broadcast. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar focused on corporate travel in a post-COVID-19 era. My name is Tanya Belter. I'm the VP of Member Services with the Fox Cities Chamber, and we're excited today to welcome Pat Tracy, who is the Marketing Director with Appleton International Airport, and also Jonathan Gonzalez, who's an Account Executive with Delta Airlines. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the time that you are taking to join us today. Today's webinar will be ran very similar to what we've done in the past. If you've ever attended a webinar, you know that we will do the presentation, which will last anywhere from 40 to 45 minutes, and then we will allow for Q&A. If you do have questions during the event, feel free to use either the chat feature or the Q&A feature, and I will take care of those. I'll monitor those, and I will direct them to either Pat or to Jonathan as the event goes on. So there are some breaks that are kind of scheduled within, and we'll go ahead and address questions as they come up. So feel free to put those in. This is meant to be interactive, and we are here to provide you with the most information that we can. So with that being said, one more thing just to remind everybody of, today's webinar is recorded and will be posted out to the foxcitieschamber.com website for anybody who would like to access this after the fact or share it maybe with somebody else within your organization that you feel may benefit from the information. So Pat has also been so kind as to share his slides of information as well, so we'll get that posted out there so you also can reference that if necessary. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Pat to share. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tanya. Good morning, everyone. I will go ahead and share my screen. Oh, Tanya, can you do the screen sharing thing that you did yesterday?
I'm so sorry. Yes, let me change that.
Those of you who are Zoom enthusiasts know that Zoom and the other webinar programs do surprise updates in the middle of the night. So every day when you come to work, there's a new Zoom product for you to figure out.
Exactly. You should be good now, Pat. Let me know if that doesn't work for you.
And there we go.
Perfect.
And so we're starting. There we go. I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Jonathan from Delta. Jonathan, you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I probably have met a large number of people on this call, but for those that I haven't met, I am Jonathan Gonzalez, as Tanya mentioned. I've been working with Pat now for about 1.5 years and working with Delta in the Fox Cities and Madison area with corporate and agency accounts. So thank you so much, everybody, for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for joining us. And I know that Jonathan's segment on what to expect on the airlines is full of good information. I'm Pat Tracy. I am here at the Appleton Airport. This is my 8th year here. Some of you know me from my time with Fox World Travel, and some of you may remember me from my time with Bergstrom Hotels. Today is actually my 26th anniversary of moving to Wisconsin. I moved here in 1999 to begin work at the Pioneer Inn and Marina. And that was my introduction to Wisconsin. And I've been fortunate to find a home here with other like-minded travel friends. And so let's talk travel today. On the right of our slide, you'll see our agenda. We will move fairly quickly. And in between each of the little segments, we will take a pause. And if you have a question, we'd like to just take care of your questions right off the bat and answer those during each segment. So let's go. I wanted to share with you some of my favorite travel resources that have become even more important during this really crazy time in history. And so I have 3 resources to share with you quickly. The first is Business Travel News. This is the first thing that I read every day when I get into the office. I read the Business Travel News daily. And so I've done a little screenshot of what that looks like. And so if you go to businesstravelnews.com and open up the sections header, you will be able to subscribe for BTN Daily. There's other newsletters in there for procurement or global, but Business Travel News is a voice of the business travel industry. And if you spend 5 minutes there every day, you will see what the travel industry is talking about. A second resource is our own Fox World Travel right here in Wisconsin. You know, as I mentioned, I did work with Fox for a number of years, and so I know their culture and their passion. They have put together a great coronavirus page. And so if you go to foxworldtravel.com, you'll see coronavirus updates. And when you get in there, Fox has put together all of the links that I had separately on my computer, and they've organized them all into one nice page. And that's why I wanted to share that page with you today. And as an example of how much great information is in here, if we look at this interactive coronavirus travel regulations map, because this is amazing information. And so here is a shot of what that looks like. This is actually the airline industry source of travel information across the globe. It's called Timatic. This is the same database that all of the airlines use. And so what I like about this is that I'm looking at the same information that the airlines look. And so when you hover over a country, you can pull it up. I happen to show Germany here. And so with literally 2 clicks, you've got the most updated information on travel to every country in the world. And again, if you read the fine print on Timatic, you'll see their commitment to accuracy because they are the source for all the airlines. IATA is the International Airline Travel Association. And so this is what they use. And I would recommend this is what we use as we want to know what is going on across the globe. And then my third source that I want to share with you today is Global Business Travel Association. This is a screen grab of their website. Sorry, it doesn't look that great, but I wanted you to see gbta.org. I highly recommend that you bookmark that. And as a travel professional, just nose around there a little bit. A ton of great information. And I saw an article here 2 days ago. The GBTA study finds more than half of companies considering resuming travel. And I wanted to know what that was. So I brought the little chart that GBA had done. And so obviously people like Jonathan and myself are part of the survey respondents. And here you can see that in the United States, 28% of the companies. And so this is typically the GBTA members are going to be the larger companies. And it is global. So it's not just Wisconsin, but you can see percentages for how travel managers are thinking about re-engaging with travel to visit customers or suppliers or whatever you do. I couldn't help but put in a little pitch for the Wisconsin Business Travel Association. And so I've put their website on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you are a travel professional and are not a member of GBTA or GBTA Wisconsin, here's the resource for you.
And Patrick, if I may add something to that as well, want to highlight that neither Patrick or I are being sponsored by GBTA in any way, shape, or form, but I do want to provide my personal experience as a fairly new member to the Wisconsin business travel community. GBTA Wisconsin has been a wonderful resource for me to get to network across the Wisconsin travel family. So for anybody on board that is not a member, really highly encourage it. It is worth every penny of the registration fee, because you really get to connect with your colleagues across the state and build good relationships within the industry. So,
thank you. And so that's our first pause. Tanya, are there any questions yet?
Nope, not at this time. I've not seen anything come through.
Perfect. So let's jump into the data. We will talk about travel trends. And so we as the airport have had a lot of interest in this because we want to know when is our business coming back. And so if we think, and so this chart is from the Airlines Reporting Corporation, ARC. That is the ticket clearinghouse for all of the airline ticket transactions in the US, anything that goes through a travel agency, which does include all of the online travel agencies. And so this represents a great cross section of what is happening in the United States for airline ticket purchases. And so if you think back to, March 20th, you would see the numbers at minus 97 or minus 98%. That first weekend when the pandemic really started to close the country, that weekend of March 14th and 15th, pretty much every airport in the country went from having a great spring break down to losing 97 or 98% of their business. You can see, based on this weekly ticket sales data, that corporate is coming back to flying very slowly. And what's interesting is that leisure is moving much faster. And we're certainly seeing that at the airport, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Another metric that we've been following is we built some charts in Google Trends, and we've been, this particular one is on travel sentiment based on these phrases if you search for them. And we ran this back for a full year just so we could see a really good perspective on this. And it's exciting for us to see that, is it safe to fly? The searches are dropping off dramatically. And is it safe to travel, which is a different way to say the question, seems to be being searched more. And I just had the update this morning of this information, and the blue line takes another drop. So we interpret that as meaning that the customers are seeing what the airports and the airlines are doing to provide a safe and healthy travel environment, and that message is getting through to people, and so they're not as concerned as maybe they have been, but still showing some concern. And then my last little chart is the Appleton Airport chart. And so this is, again, daily passengers. And I have to be honest, I initially started this graph, and I started it from January, but it is so depressing to look at that I literally could not share it with you, because Appleton Airport normally does 1,000 to 1,700 outbound passengers a day. And so when you put 1,700 on this chart, everything else looks like there's not really even any travel. And in fact, that's what's happening. But here you can see that our travel hit its low here at Appleton Airport on April 19th with 19 travelers. That was our low spot, was April 19th, and it has slowly but steadily increased. To be honest, we are a little surprised at the growth in the travel number, and so we saw 426 customers fly out on Sunday. I would tell you that most of that 426 is leisure or visiting friends and relatives travel. Here in Appleton, our normal travel mix out of the airport is like 70% business and 30% leisure. And so now what you're seeing here is almost the 30% leisure. if we just round off and say we're doing 1,500 departures a day, almost 500 of these were leisure and flying out on Allegiant. We have literally flipped our business mix here in Appleton, and so we're doing mostly leisure with about 100 business travelers a day going out. We do see that increasing, but this is what's happening today. And from talking with other airports around the country, pretty much every airport is seeing something like this, unless you are in Florida, there, and especially the Allegiant airports. Appleton flies to Tampa, St. Pete, Fort Myers, Punta Gorda. Those airports are doing over 60% of their business because Florida is, I would say, leading the states in reopening. And so they're getting back to business much quicker down there, and they're seeing more customers. So that was my little section on travel trends. Tanya, any questions yet?
Nothing as of yet, Pat.
Beautiful. So I'll talk a little bit about what the airport experience will be like, and then Jonathan will talk about what the experience on the aircraft is like. We felt that we needed to create a new normal, and so our program here in Appleton is before you. We do have our Healthy Connections webpage up, and these are the things that we felt we needed to do to offer a safe and healthy experience to our customers. And now we are seeing that every airport in the country is doing something very similar. And so as you look around the airports, you'll see all kinds of safe and healthy phrases. Here is ours. I'll be honest, the ATW clean phrase, I borrowed that from Delta. Delta has been a leader, and you'll see when we get to the airline slides why I think they're a leader. But we've basically boiled our measures here at the airport down to four thoughts. And the first is deep cleaning beyond what anyone has ever expected. And so we did use our time here at the airport on those days when we were doing very few passengers. We literally deep cleaned the airport from top to bottom and inside out. And we've added a number of procedures now that are standard. We have implemented social distancing throughout the airport. We believe that the customer will want opportunities to self-sanitize as they go through the airport. And the last concept is touchless. I will talk about this a little bit more, but it is kind of my mantra right now, and hopefully it's yours, and we'll get into that later. I've got a couple shots on what Healthy Connections looks like here in Appleton. On the left, you can see our custodian, Matt. We went out immediately and found a local supplier who has the spray fogger mister gun, and he is spraying. So we spray our entire terminal at least twice a day, all the hard surfaces, with a disinfectant solution that lasts for like 3 or 4 days and has been shown to kill human coronavirus as well as 100 other germs, viruses, and funguses. And so now we are using this. This is not exactly what they're using on the aircraft, but it's similar. In the middle, we are requesting passengers to wear face coverings in the airport. Face coverings are not mandatory in the Appleton airport. I would tell you that as you think about traveling around the country, one of the things you'll need to research is, are face masks required at the airport I'm going to be arriving at? Because some airports around the country are requiring face masks. And to be honest, there is no rhyme or reason to it. It's simply their local understanding. And some airports are doing temperature screening. I've heard of that. So it's really, unfortunately, no consistency out there. And then on the right, I've got a picture showing our social distancing signs on the floor in front of the Delta counter. And then if you look to the support pole in the background, you can see our white hand sanitizer on a little orange frame. We purchased 20 of these hand sanitizers, which we've now put up at strategic touch points throughout the terminal. And this one, for example, is right after you would hand your luggage over to Delta to check in. If you wanted to self-sanitize there, you have an option to do so. Other things that we've done in Appleton, you'll see the sneeze guards. And there's Brandon applying our ATW Clean logo to the sneeze guards. So we have them up at all the airline counters, the restaurant, the car rental, pretty much everywhere in the airport. We did try to have a little bit of fun with our social distancing decals. And then on the right, you can see our solution to your luggage coming off of the bag belt, and perhaps you want to sanitize your luggage handle or your luggage before you bring it home. And so we have wipes in baggage claim. We also have the same disinfectant wipes set up at the TSA checkpoint, so you could sanitize after TSA. So those are my slides. Oh, TSA, let's not forget about this. I have 2 pieces of information on TSA. I know this is kind of a lot of writing here on the slide. Again, I wanted to make this a resource if you wanted to share it directly with travelers. And so TSA, a couple of highlights is that, for example, here in Appleton, our TSA PreCheck lane has not been open regularly because we're doing, again, 20 or 30% of our normal volume. You do receive the little pink card if you're a TSA PreCheck customer, so you still do not have to take off your shoes and remove your liquids and all that stuff. So just be aware of that. TSA here in Appleton has done kind of a neat thing with the bins. The bin here is designated as number 1. Here in Appleton, they have removed all of the excess bins so that they're only left with how many bins are needed for the flight that is boarding. And so they literally sanitize every single bin, and then they bring those out to the front of the checkpoint so that every customer gets a bin that has not been touched by another customer and was just sanitized. TSA is also practicing social distancing in the checkpoint. So that might seem a little weird because they could be talking loudly to you, or it could be perceived as shouting, but they're trying to maintain that 6-foot distance. TSA is wearing masks, and they do have the plastic at the podium. The other new things for TSA, and this is all on their website, and I do have the TSA website link there. And again, I put an asterisk. TSA PreCheck is still the rules as it used to be, but you might have to go through the general line, and then you get that little special TSA card. So here, let's think touchless. Self-scan your boarding pass. TSA will no longer reach for your phone or your boarding pass. They will expect you to hold it correctly over the reader, and then TSA wants you to show your boarding pass to the TSO who's sitting there. If you are carrying food, they want it in a clear plastic bag in the bin. Pack smart, and really here the learning is that TSA did make an exception back in March that instead of being limited to 3.4 ounces of a liquid or a gel, you can bring up to 12 ounces of hand sanitizer. Again, if you're not TSA PreCheck, they want that removed into the bin. And when I talked to my TSA manager about what can I tell travelers today, Jimmy said, please remind them about the great resource on tsa.gov, what can I bring on board? Every day we get someone bringing some crazy thing through that if they had looked at this list, they would understand that maybe they can't bring that through. And then at the bottom, think touchless. And my example here is, and I do this because I'm a frequent traveler, but I have a hard time managing myself when I'm traveling. And so I've trained myself to literally have everything out of my pockets before I approach the TSA checkpoint. I have my belt, everything is in my carry-on bag. And the only thing that is not is my phone, because I have my boarding pass on my phone. And then immediately after scanning my boarding pass, I put that into my special pocket in my backpack where only my phone goes. And now I'm ready to go through the checkpoint and not have to put anything into the little, I call it a dog bowl, the thing where you're supposed to put your change and your phones. And so I would suggest to train yourselves and your travelers to travel like that through the checkpoint. You want to minimize what you're touching and the opportunities for TSA to have to pull your bag out and start looking through it, because we want to be touchless. Any questions yet, Tanya?
Yes, actually, we do have two that popped up in regards to the most recent topic you were discussing. So the first question was, and I didn't know the answer. She said I could type it, but unfortunately I don't know the answer to this. What type of disinfectant or sanitizers are you guys using in the airport? Do you know offhand?
Yes, I do, and I will grab it for you. Sorry, we happen to have, this is the sanitizer that we use when we're hand spraying. It's TB Plus, and I have some in our conference room because we have to sanitize our own areas just like everybody else.
Sure.
So this is a Northwoods TB Plus disinfectant spray. That's what we use for hard surfaces. For the Mr. Fogger, I would have to look at the website, and I can do that. And if that person wants to share email with you, Tanya, I can email back the specifics on the Fogger, because
Okay.
it's a quite impressive list of what it is.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. The particular attendee who asked that was anonymous. I don't have that person's name. So
Okay.
if you would like that information, as Pat noted, please feel free to, to contact me directly, and I'll get that information to you. I think you touched on some of this because you just went over the TSA PreCheck process, but I don't know if you covered both of these aspects. I'm going to ask the question, and if there's additional information you can add. Her question was, how does the TSA PreCheck and global entry process working now with this in the new world of?
Yes. And so typically PreCheck and global entry, because global entry obviously is the global status, but it does flow down to TSA PreCheck. And so at the checkpoint, TSA views both PreCheck and global entry as pretty much the exact same treatment.
Okay.
And so that treatment is that pre-COVID, the TSA line would be open. And I would tell you that because of the reduced volumes through the airports, the PreCheck line has been closed most of the time. And so all the travelers go through the general boarding line. However, when you get to the podium and they see that you're PreCheck, because it's on your boarding pass there,
Mm-hmm.
they give you it's like a little pink card, and I think it says PreCheck on it. And then you show that to the officer before you go through the magnetometer. And then that officer will offer for you to go through the ATI machine, which is the one, where you stand and you put your hands up and it scans you.
Yep.
So when TSA sees that pink PreCheck card, they will then give you the PreCheck experience through the checkpoint.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. Those are the two that we had at this point. So if we'd like, we can move on to the next section.
Well, this is what everyone came for, to understand what the aircraft experience would be like. So I'll turn it over to Jonathan.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tanya. So I wanted to highlight a little bit of what Delta Airlines is doing to make sure that all of our travelers have a very clean travel experience. And it all starts with the gates in the boarding area. Number one on this infographic is actually something I'm going to highlight on the next slide, so I'm going to skip for now, but it's in regards to our new cleaning procedures on the aircraft. But at the airport, at the gate, we are making some changes as well. So we are requiring all customers to wear face masks as well as any customer-facing employees. So at the gate, you'll see all of our employees wearing masks, and they're actually providing masks to any customers that don't have any on their own. We are cleaning the gate areas and pretty much all of the touch points within the gate areas more frequently, and have installed plexiglass shields just to kind of have that blocker between our gate agents and the customers. At the gate counters, in addition to them being cleaned more thoroughly, you'll see most of them have sanitizing spray or Purell available, and that is pretty much throughout the system. In regards to the boarding process, that has been changed as well. We are now boarding from back to front. So whereas our customers were used to boarding by group, now the announcements are by rows. So usually the last 5 rows and then forward from there. And in terms of the actual boarding process, we're limiting that to 10 people at a time, just to make sure that there is social distancing available, which there are stickers throughout the jet bridges and the loading bridges to kind of provide that guidance on what the 6 feet of social distancing is. If we move on to the next slide, which highlights our initiatives on board the aircraft, this is really, I think, the bread and butter of the new Delta Clean initiative. On the airplane, we have a cleaning checklist that is extensive, that goes for our cleaning crew to make sure that all of the touch points that customers use are cleaned thoroughly. When coronavirus first hit the United States, this was happening on board of our international flights. Then it got trickled down to every overnight, and now this is being done at every turn on every aircraft throughout the system, including Delta Connection. So it begins with electrostatic spraying, which is a similar fogging procedure to what is used in hospitals, and it uses a high-grade disinfectant spray to sanitize all of the airplanes before the flight. This spray is actually very safe to breathe, and the cleaning crew, passengers and crew are able to breathe the air shortly after spraying. So after the spraying procedure, the cleaning crew boards the aircraft, and using this checklist, they clean all of the touch points. So whether it be overhead bins, they clean the armrest, they clean the back of the headrests, the window shades, pretty much anything that the customer would touch regularly, it is cleaned. I think the bigger thing that helps with the safety of travelers is the HEPA filters. So aircraft are equipped with a high disinfecting or HEPA filter that ventilates air regularly and extracts almost 100% of all viruses and particles, including coronavirus. So this is really a key metric in what we use to ensure cleaning. In addition to that, and I'll get more to that on the next slide, the blankets, bedding, and high touch point items from the airplanes have been removed. Anybody that has flown recently or will fly recently will notice that we no longer have our in-flight magazine on board, and really you will only find the safety card behind the seats. So in regards to the airplane and what you'll find at your seat, if we can move on to the next slide, Pat, there's a lot of changes that we're making here too. And I think the big one that we're doing company-wide is the limiting of the number of seats that can be sold per flight. So at Delta, every single flight, and actually as of yesterday afternoon, we announced that this has been extended through September the 30th. No aircraft will depart with more than 60% load factor. First class is now 50%, and all the other cabins, Comfort Plus and main cabin, are now 60%. So what that will ensure is that no one is sitting next to anyone else unless they want to. If you're traveling with a family member of a companion and you want to sit next to them, that would just be a conversation with the gate agent to facilitate that. But in regards to the onboard experience, we are providing care kits, which have a couple of self-use, single-use packs of Purell and a wipe. as well as a mask if you request one. As I mentioned earlier, everything is being wiped down, instead, including the tray tables, seat back screens, seat belts, armrest, and pretty much all of the touch points throughout the airplane. And we're also minimizing the touch points between the crew and the passengers. Now the service is no longer the trolley. It is a standardized service where everybody gets a preloaded baggie, which contains a water bottle, our beloved Biscoff cookies, and a bag of Cheez-Its or an additional snack, as well as a napkin and another single-use wipe. So we're just trying to minimize the touch points between customers and the crew. I would say that's the bulk of the Delta Clean initiatives. Any questions from anybody, Tanya?
Yes, we do have a couple that have come in. One was actually a follow-up question for Pat in regards to the TSA. When you were speaking about getting the pink card that that would indicate that they were pre-check.
Yes.
Is that a single-use card, or is that something that they would be able to use again on an additional flight?
It's a single-use card.
Okay. All right, perfect. Another question was, I think this is more for, this would be, I would guess, for Jonathan. Will the reduced capacity, or how will the reduced capacity on the flights affect prices?
Absolutely, that's a great question. In regards to pricing, I think that is a very whole different subject that to be honest with you, I'm not very familiar with. However, we're not really trying to distribute the cost of the additional seats that are not being sold across all the customers. I think it's no surprise to any airline, including Delta, that really right now is not the time for profitability. Just to give you a perspective, our what we call break-even load factor, and that's the number of seats that have to be sold in order for the flight to break even, is about 80%. So we certainly don't intend to cover the cost of those seats that are blocked across everybody else that is buying a seat. Really what the organization is trying to do is build traveler confidence. We want to make sure to not be penny wise, dollar foolish, because the truth of the matter is without travelers, there is no Delta, there is no airline. So our intention as an organization is not to distribute those additional costs across those seats. It's just to rebuild traveler confidence.
Perfect. Okay, so several questions for you, Jonathan. So I'll go through them.
Sure.
The cleaning process that you're speaking about, they're wondering if the question is, how will that affect connection times, or is it done once daily, or is it going to affect the connection times in between flights?
That's a great question. So the connection times have been adjusted because of the greater cleaning times required. In terms of our turn times before the pandemic, they could have been as short as 35 minutes, and right now they're significantly longer. So we have adjusted our flight schedule to reflect for longer turn times, and you would think that's going to be detrimental, but the truth is we have pulled down the schedule so much where now airplanes are not doing 8 flights a day. So it hasn't really been detrimental to the whole system, but it is being factored in with the additional turn time for cleaning.
Okay. And I'm guessing, so this next question kind of ties into that, and I'm guessing your answer is going to be similar to what you just shared, but the question is, how is the new initiative, is it causing delays, or are you spacing the flights out for longer loading time? But it sounds like you're accommodating for that just with connections in general and more time.
So, definitely. And it really is a domino effect, because with fewer passengers, boarding does take significantly less. There's really no fight for available space on the overhead bins because there's fewer passengers. So any additional length of time that's been required for cleaning procedures, has been kind of sort of offset by the fact that boarding is taking half as long, and it is a much quicker process. So overall, we have factored in the additional time required for the cleaning, and if it is affecting turn times, we're talking 5-10 minutes at most. I have heard of situations where, and it is part of our boarding announcement now that, the gate agent says, I have confirmed that the crew has cleaned the aircraft or has given their stamp of approval on the aircraft. And our crews have the ability to say, this plane is not clean enough. But it's not usually at the last minute. At that point, it's quite a bit before departure. And if it is affecting times a little bit, we're talking 5-10 minutes at most.
Perfect. Another question, and this is you. I know you had spoke to the changes in the boarding process and how you're boarding front to or back to front. One of the questions is there any change, or how does the offloading process of passengers work?
Absolutely. So on the offloading of passengers, it really is up to the flight crew and really the flight attendants to organize this. I have been on a flight recently and got the opportunity to observe how this works. What they're asking is just for people to be cognizant of the fact that social distancing initiatives are still very much in place, and they're asking only a couple of rows to get up, at a certain time.
Sure.
It's not really an instruction base. It's kind of up to the travelers. It was very surprising to see how organized everything is and how much quicker airplanes are being deported because not everybody stands up and gets in the aisle at the same time. So it really is the cabin attendants that are kind of working through encouraging people to just be organized in the process. So it's still very much encouraged that we practice social distancing while deplaning the aircraft.
Perfect. So I think you've done a really great job of covering kind of the process from start to finish. One of the viewers is asking a really good question. Could you explain the difference between what were the practices that were already in place by Delta versus what are the additional precautions that you're taking now because of COVID? Because obviously there are, cleaning and disinfecting and things that happen. I mean, that was happening all along. So what are the additional precautions? What's the divide there?
That's a great question. So before the pandemic, airplanes were deep cleaned at every overnight. That doesn't necessarily mean the last flight of the day. Sometimes, let's say we had a plane start its day at 6 a.m. in the morning and end its day at midnight. Sometime between flights, Delta would schedule each airplane to have a 3 or 4 hour break at a hub. And at that break, a cleaning crew would come in and do a deep cleaning of the aircraft. We would still very much deep clean the touch points of the airplane, and the HEPA filters were still very much a part of the equipment on the airplanes, but we were not doing the electrostatic spraying. With the pandemic, we purchased a large number of these electrostatic sprayers and pretty much increased the cleaning standards of the airplane significantly. I would say mid-March to June 1st, with the availability of these electrostatic sprayers, we were able to increase the frequency at which the airplanes were getting cleaned. So in March, really, it was only our international flights that were getting the special treatment. And then April 1st, we were able to do all of the mainline flights, and then that triggered into Delta Connection. Now starting, I would say late May, third or second week of May, we're doing every single airplane with a Delta tail at every single turn. So it's just really the intensity of the cleaning, the electrostatic spraying, and the frequency of which we clean.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining that process a little bit more detailed. This question is also for you, Jonathan. I don't know that you're going to be the person to answer this just based on conversations that we've had prior to the webinar, but I'm going to ask, and maybe we could at least direct this individual to the right location. As far as cancellations and refunds, they had canceled flights back in May and have not gotten any updates on how that process is progressing through the Delta system. Any idea on where they could go to get that information?
Sure. I'm actually going to ask a follow-up question. Are we talking an individual ticket booked through delta.com, or is this a corporate booking done through a travel agency?
Okay, so I don't have that. So hopefully the individual who asked the question, we do have a few more questions, so I'm going to go to those and I'm going to allow them the opportunity to provide that information, and then we'll circle back.
Okay.
This one just popped up. Okay, gotcha. So food and beverage, you had mentioned that you were still giving out food and beverage on the flights. So how is Delta managing the face mask requirement? Whether someone is eating and drinking and choosing not to wear their mask, that type of thing, how is that managed?
Absolutely, that is a great question. So in regards to the food and beverage and the mask requirement, I think, it is part of the boarding announcement and the safety demonstration, a mask is not required while you're eating, just because it would be completely impossible to do it. We're very much on the honor system here. The flight attendants come up and down the aisle a couple of times just to ensure that everyone's okay. During the meal service, or the baggie with snacks service, for lack of a better term, it is not required for passengers to wear the masks because obviously they're going to be consuming food.
Sure.
But it's just kind of expected for them to just go back on once the eating is finished. So.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. No update yet on that initial question that we're waiting on, so I'll wait to see if they answer. This question is actually for you, Pat. The question is, we know that consumer confidence is super important right now. That's a big focus for business. Is ATW requiring face masks of all the airlines that are flying out of ATW? I mean, Jonathan obviously mentioned that Delta is requiring that, but is that something that's required for anybody who is flying out of Appleton?
The Appleton Airport is requesting face masks to be worn in the terminal. We as the airport do not dictate to the airlines anything, really. And so each airline will set their individual policy. And so today here in Appleton, American, Delta, and United are requiring masks on board. Allegiant does not require masks on board. However, Allegiant hands every customer, as they do board the aircraft, a little kit with a mask, gloves, and some hand sanitizer. So
Okay.
I hope that answered the question.
It does. Thank you. If there's additional follow-up, we'll go back to that one. But I am going to circle back with Jonathan in regards to the canceled tickets. So those were personal tickets that were booked through a third party. But the cancellation/refund request was actually initiated by Delta, or was initiated with Delta. Delta entered the request for the refund and the cancellation. They received an email that it was in process, but that's where it's ended. So they haven't gotten an update since.
Absolutely. So thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it, just because it is a different answer for both.
Sure.
In regards to personal tickets booked through delta.com, even if it's through a third party, the one thing that we are asking as an organization is just a little bit of patience. There have been tens of thousands, and I know I'm being very conservative on that number, of cancellation requests. So in regards to refunds, they are being delayed quite a bit. I personally had a ticket that I had to wait over 30 days for a refund for. Now, if your ticket has been booked through a third party, such as Expedia or whatnot, that really does delay the process a little bit longer, because the tickets actually belong to that organization that did the booking. So I would certainly continue to follow up, but we do ask for just a little bit of patience with the refund time, as just a large volume of requests have kind of slowed the process down a little bit.
Totally understandable. I can imagine that you guys are getting inundated with phone calls and requests. So another question for Jonathan in regards to the water bottle and the snack bag that passengers are being distributed. So during takeoff and touchdown, are they to just hold on to their water bottle and their snack bag, since the tray is to remain up all the time? And then at the end, will flight attendants come around to pick up the trash, or should they be leaving that in their seat? What is the process for that?
That's a great question. So when you're boarding the aircraft, the flight attendant that is greeting the passengers as they board is actually handing out an individual single-use, either liquid of Purell or a single-use wipe. What will happen is, and they will announce this as well, saying, please do not put these in the seat back pockets. We will come and collect them, once we're airborne. So that's the first thing that people will be handed as they board the aircraft. Once the airplane is above 10,000 feet, then the flight attendant will come by with a tray which has the individual baskets on it, and then they'll just hand it up to every customer that wants one. After a few minutes or so, then they'll come back with a trash bag to collect garbage. And just prior to arrival, they will come back one more time to make sure all of the garbage has been collected. On longer flights, sometimes the flight attendants will come by twice, even 3 times, depending on the length of the flight, offering another snack basket. So it's just a matter of kind of repeating that process over and over again, but usually the baskets are handed after takeoff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And the individual who had asked about the cancellation just wanted to thank you again for the information. She was just wanted to reassure she hadn't missed a step somewhere and needed to be doing something additional. So appreciate just further clarity on that. Another question, and this kind of ties into that when you were talking about booking through a third party. When booking future travel, would you recommend that passengers book directly through Delta as opposed to booking through a third party?
So I will start with something first, and I think my answer will be 100% biased if I answer that question. But with that being said, you know, a third party, there are partners just as much as the Appleton Airport, Fox World Travel is. But I do want to kind of encourage from an educational purposes for people to understand what these travel consolidators mean. You know, let's say if you go to a grocery store and you buy a 12-pack of Coca-Cola, you come home and you open it and it's flat. You go back to that vendor, aka Walmart, Pick and Save, whatever grocery store it is, to deal with the Coca-Cola problem. You don't go directly with Coke. It's a similar relationship with tickets that are purchased through an online travel agency and the airline. You know, I would say annually or quarterly, there are a packet of tickets that each airline will sell to these agencies for them to market, price, and sell accordingly. It is now their property, their responsibility to sell. And in fact, sometimes you'll find on Expedia or Kayak or whatever it may be, an itinerary where you have an outbound on Delta, return on American, or something like that, where you will never see that on each airline's individual website. The issue with buying a ticket through one of those agencies is if there is a problem, let's say a cancellation or you missed your connection, the airline is really unable to help you because the ticket does not belong to them. So just keep that in mind when purchasing a ticket through these agencies. Yes, sometimes it is cheaper, but the transacting of this ticket, if there's an issue, has to go through them because they own the actual ticket, not the airline. So we're kind of just they're the dealership in this sense. So you would transact with them. Just keep that in mind. But I don't think I can honestly answer that question without being very biased. So.
Excellent. It was a good answer. It was a great explanation. The way that you equated it, like you said, to the Coca-Cola purchase, I think just helps people gain a better understanding of kind of how those relationships work. So I've done both. I've booked directly through an airline and I've booked through a third party. And, you know, I can understand there are pros and cons to both, but I think just the explanation is really helpful in people being able to make the best decision they can for whatever their circumstances. So
yeah, and just adding on to that, I would say, you know, if you are researching booking flights, I would just go both routes and just see what one is offering versus the other. It is seldom that you'll find a very large discrepancy in price. And it's kind of up to you as a consumer just to determine what's that threshold that you'll go one versus the other. But just wanted to express that. So
sure, thank you so much. That's all I have right now for questions. So if you want to move forward, we can go ahead and go on to the next.
Perfect. So this brings us to our last little section here. So we're right on time, and this is not intended as a deep dive into duty of care and travel policy, but I felt my responsibility to at least address this topic. And so there you can see the definition of duty and care, of duty of care. And I guess, you know, my take on this, I've been a travel professional my entire life, and I think that all travelers are going to have a difficulty or a disruption at some point. It's just a matter of when, and it is our responsibility as managers and as employers to provide a standard of reasonable care for our travelers. And so that's the statement. And then just, if you haven't thought about duty of care in relation to COVID-19 or the current riots around the country, I mean, the the news today gives us so many reasons and so much motivation of why we should tighten up our duty of care with our employees. But really, the key things are, if you're a traveler and you're out on the road and you're having a problem, do you even know the phone number to call to get help? What would you do for medical assistance? If you're in Florida right now and you're sick, where are you going to go? And so these are things that we as employers need to handle for our travelers. The numbers 2 and 3. So for example, I gave you the Timatic info for all of the countries around the globe. Thinking to the US, to be honest, I don't know the resource to go and check all 50 states and understand what the travel like is to all 50 of those states. But as we are doing business all over the country, we're going to have to monitor travel to the big cities of the US or future coronavirus hotspots. And as employers managing travel, we are going to need to know about those. And then number 4 and 5, if something does happen in one of these areas, do you know exactly where your travelers are all the time? And if you don't, you're going to need to set up a system and a process to understand that. And finally, how are you going to contact your travelers in emergency? So that's kind of the 2-minute duty of care brief. And then here is my last slide that I brought to share today. These are just some of the things that, as I've talked with travel managers and industry folks, these are the things that we're talking about that we're going to have to address in our travel policy. I'm guessing everyone has the now standard 14-day home quarantine, that if I travel someplace, you know, I work for Outagamie County, and so I had this policy that I was not allowed to travel anywhere, because if I did, I would have to self-quarantine for 14 days. We need to think about what behaviors and activities can travelers do now while they're traveling. Do we need to tell people that they can't go out at night? Will personal protection be required when traveling? Should travelers have a little medical kit with them? Should they have a thermometer? And so all of these things, I believe, are things that as employers, we need to start thinking about equipping our travelers to travel safely in the new world. Number 4, if we haven't defined essential traveler, and who are essential travelers, because it's different depending on who you talk to. Number 5, this is my soapbox on touchless, and I've listed a few things that impact my life as a traveler as touchless. And so if your travelers don't have their work credit cards loaded into Apple or Samsung Pay, this seems to me like this is the time to start thinking about that. I know I've tuned up my personal Apple Pay experience so that there's never a reason why I should be handing my credit card back and forth to a vendor. Same thing with the airline apps and the boarding pass. Obviously, there's going to be times you're going to end up with a paper boarding pass if there's a flight change or something, but you really want to minimize that. Travelers should be encouraged to do the self-service luggage check-in. We don't have it here yet in Appleton, but if you're returning home from a big city, you'll probably have an opportunity there. And again, what that does is reduces face-to-face contact with a airline employee out there on the road, and allows the traveler to self-tag their luggage. I think TSA PreCheck is a touchless experience because it reduces the amount of going through luggage that would be required. And then thinking about hotels and using the digital room key that's now available. Should you think about putting those in your policy and making that an expectation of your travelers that they are as touchless as possible? And if they're not, what do they need to get them to touchless? And then just a couple wild cards I threw in here just for fun. You know, you might want to consider specifying hotel brands. I know that I'm going to feel more comfortable in a higher end brand hotel than I am a lower end brand hotel. And so we're going to need to think about what our travel policies will allow. Ride share. Wow. I haven't even wrapped my brain around what it's going to be like to jump into Ubers and Lyfts when I get back on the road. So at some point, I'm going to need to think about that, and all of the travel managers are as well. And then the last thing is restaurants. You know, we're going to have to get used to the new normal, and are there restaurants open where I'm going? Restaurant reservations if I'm taking out clients. So for me as a traveler, and I'm kind of my own travel manager, so this is kind of the checklist that I think of as I'm planning a trip. And I just wanted to give you a few thought starters to help you with that same process. And so that brings us to questions. And then I'll leave our contact information here so you have that. And please feel free to reach out to myself or Jonathan with any questions at any time. And then I'll turn it back to Tanya.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We did have 2 more questions that popped up that we'll just address real quickly here. Have you heard of anyone that's offering travelers insurance that covers cancellations related to a sickness due to COVID-19? Or a location's turning into a hot spot, or the location is now doing a 2-week quarantine. Have you heard of anybody who offers insurance for those types of incidents?
That's beyond the scope of my knowledge.
Okay.
I actually just want to add something in regards to that. In terms of insurance, not quite the definition of insurance. Most airlines, and all of them really right now, are offering pretty generous policies in regards to changes or cancellations or change adjustments because of this pandemic. In regards to Delta, ours is pretty generous, and the details of it available on our website. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily insurance, but it is kind of a little bit of a peace of mind in terms of new bookings. So you are pretty much able to change without a change fee for any bookings made until the end of the month. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. Pat, you touched on this a little bit in regards to travel and just the different ways that people are going to dine out and transportation options and that type of thing. But more specifically related to airports, what should travelers expect when it comes to like restaurants and food courts and food stations in the airports themselves? Are there limited openings? Are they only open certain hours? Are they maybe not open at all? Any ideas on maybe what that expectation might be?
Yes. So here in Appleton, our restaurant is open limited hours, and I would say that is the norm across the country. I am seeing from my airport friends that the airport, every airport in every municipality is bound to the regulations of their city or their county. And so you can imagine how different all of those regulations are.
Sure.
So I would say as a general statement that there will be less food service options available at restaurants as you're traveling. And certainly for the next 3 months, if you're traveling, I would be not reliant on finding food. My travel buddy, Abe, our airport director, knows that Pat usually eats at every stopping point on his journey. And so Pat will be packing a substantial lunch going forward, just because it is the unknown and I don't know what I'm going to find. So
sure.
You can look at the airport websites. If you're planning a trip, it'll take you 5 minutes to go to the airport website, and certainly on ours, we have what is happening at our restaurants in the hours. And so my sense is every airport in the country has that information on their airport website, but I would plan to have limited food and beverage options through the airports.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So that's it for specific questions. A person was asking, and we went over this a little bit in the beginning, but just to reiterate, today's session was recorded and will be available on the foxcitieschamber.com website along with the slides that were shared. So again, I want to thank Pat, Tracy, and Jonathan Gonzalez for joining us today and sharing all of the expertise that you have on just what's happening right now with travel. Also, thank you to our partners for helping help host this event, Fox West Chamber of Commerce, Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce, and the Heart of the Valley Chamber of Commerce. So again, this was hosted in part of the Stronger Together series, bringing you information on COVID-19 as our community navigates the pandemic. So thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Jonathan. I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Continue to watch foxcitieschamber.com for additional upcoming events. We do have a virtual business connection happening next week, Thursday at 5 p.m. We'll be having some area health experts on that to talk about general health and wellness and allowing people to ask questions and network through that type of a format. So we hope that you'll join us for that. With that being said, I'll let everybody carry on with their day. It's great and sunshiny out there. Hopefully everybody gets a chance to enjoy that. So thank you, Pat and Jonathan, and we look forward to seeing everybody at future virtual events.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.